I realize that I'm probably the last person who should be dispensing advice, given that I go out of my way to talk about animals with big dicks as often and as loudly as I possibly can. But I feel as if some of the things that I've learned so far in this living nightmare may prove useful to others who might otherwise wake up one day to find themselves in a rather uncomfortable situation, as though somebody slipped it in while they were asleep. And really all of that shock and disappointment could have been avoided if you had just been forewarned. So here is my warning to you. I'm gonna slip it in right now. And what it is helpful information and useful life lessons. Not the other thing. And I guarantee after this slipping, I'll still be invited to family gatherings. For instance, if you intend to travel from one end of a country to another, and you don't have to cross any major bodies of water to do so, I would suggest any form of transportation that isn't air travel, because every aspect of that experience is equally as, if not more, grueling than the last. Before you even get on the plane, anybody waiting for their flight in an airport looks so deeply pained to the bowels of their soul as if sitting is a chore. And I don't understand why that isn't preferable to doing the same thing, only so high up in the air that if one thing goes wrong, you're not going to see your kids again. I overheard a blonde woman ask her friend if he was blonde in an effort to insult his intelligence, and my head almost exploded from the irony. And I wanted to make that joke in the airport, but they don't like humor about things blowing up, do they? Every so often there will be a PSA about reporting suspicious behavior, but there's a real lack of clarity because they don't elaborate. What exactly do you mean by suspicious? Yeah, I'd like to report somebody suspicious. He's not like a terrorist or anything, he just has really far apart eyes. I bet airport security gets a lot of calls about people who've had their hand down the front of their pants for an uncomfortably long time. The word airplane is very misleading, and I think I would prefer they be called something a little bit more honest, like discomfort and weird smell simulator. Tube of stink. Does first class come with a gas mask and pine-scented car fresheners? Because if so, I can see the appeal. That's kind of long. And the whole time you're in the air, the Earth is doing literally everything in its power to make you come back down again quickly. The entire exercise is just a fight against the universe. Mother Nature's entire reason for creating bad weather is to discourage us from going up that high so that we find out that God doesn't exist. And if he does, he's definitely not sitting in a cloud up there, because a small metal tube can punch a hole right through that shit. This effect is called turbulent displace. And it's a pretty accurate representation of what flying through a snowstorm makes your colon feel like. I have diagrams. Here's a healthy human colon, and underneath it we have the human colon when going through turbulence. Do you see how it's coming out of my fucking mouth? Ever been on an airplane that was so small that whenever the landing gear dropped it sounded like a piece of the plane just broke off? Nothing makes me pray to 8 gods at once like the sound of the magical flying machine I'm currently sitting in, vomiting what could be all of its guts out onto the ground below through its asshole. Everyone always says, Jesus, take the wheel. As a matter of fact, I haven't heard anybody say that in some time. But my point is, I would rather have that elephant with the 8 arms, God, because he seems at least 4 times better at flying a plane than some hungry dude with holes in his hands. Sitting in the middle seat of economy class is kind of like being in an upright coffin, which is fitting because during some parts of that flight, you're going to be so close to death that a surprise sneeze from the pilot is all that's required to send you straight to hell. I'm not sure if ground submarines have been invented yet, but if you hit the Earth at a nosedive from 30,000 feet, that's pretty much what that's gonna be. Big airplanes like to do this thing when they turn where they go bip, and I was not ready for the ground to be right in my face out that window. And since we're discussing the horrors of air travel, who in their right mind flies in a hot air balloon? Hey, we were gonna take this 4-man basket that was literally woven, maybe by hand, and we're gonna blow an open flame into the flimsy fabric that's attached to it just a few feet from our heads. Eventually, we'll be higher than any human being is supposed to go. That's it, really. Oh, what happens next? Well, that's really up to God, isn't it? Hopefully it's not so windy that we flip the fuck over and fall until we hit something solid. If you look to your left, you'll see some power lines that I'm desperately trying to avoid. Have you made amends with your loved ones? On the bright side, if you trip and flip yourself over the edge because there's no guardrail, you'll have time in the interim between falling out of the basket and hitting the ground to call your ex and apologize. And the only difference between up and down is how much fire I'm putting into the air around us. There's a lot of science involved here. I'm not surprised if you can't keep up. I'm trying to get cast as a superhero in the new Avengers movie so that I actually have a reason to watch it. My name is going to be Darkman, and my special power is being a good reason for old ladies to call the police if they see me from their window at night. Ah, fatherhood, my only weakness.